The huff of the bus's hydraulic brakes roused Margot from her doze. She opened her eyes and stared out the bus's window at the snowy mounds covering every available inch of landscape outside of Belvedere's bed and breakfast in Collingwood, Vermont. The small town was just a short trip from Port Marie. While Margot loved her hometown, after the year she'd had, she needed a break. The little B&B would be the perfect getaway for New Year's Eve. Chances were she'd spend it in the company of strangers. Not that she minded, although, now that she was here, a part of her questioned why she hadn't accepted Sam's offer to spend the holiday together, like they'd done in their youth. "This is where you needed to go, right, ma'am?" The driver called out to her when she had stayed rooted to the sidewalk in front of the quaint three-story house with rosy pink shutters and cream-colored siding. "Yes, thank you," she answered with a forced smile. Then she closed the distance to the tiny front porch and shouldered her way through the front door into a cozy foyer. Heat blasted from old-fashioned radiators, and she let the warmth seep into her skin, beating back the chill from her brief time outside. Even after having time to acclimate to New England weather, she was convinced her core temperature was stuck in the Middle East. As she let the heat revive her, Margot took a moment to take in her surroundings. The house was a typical New England home with wood paneling and tasteful prints of town squares and ocean views leading up the first set of stairs. Directly ahead of her sat a small desk, and off to her left she heard the commotion of people around a dinner table. She left her bag by the front desk and poked her head into the dining room. 6 people sat around a heavy oak table. "Oh, you must be Margot," an older woman with gray hair announced, her voice carrying across the room, loud enough to stop the side conversations. "Yes, ma'am," Margot answered. "I'm sorry to interrupt dinner. The bus was behind schedule." "Nonsense. Come right in." The woman turned her attention to a teenage girl staring transfixed at her phone. "Valerie, put that thing down and go get another place setting." Valerie let out a sigh, but set the phone down and walked past Margot toward what Margot assumed was the kitchen. The woman rounded the table and extended a hand to Margot. "Caroline Belvedere, proprietor." Margot shook Caroline's hand. "It's very nice to meet you." Caroline glanced over her shoulder at the other diners. "You can take the seat beside Kalina," she said, pointing to a red-headed woman, possibly in her early 30s. Margot took the seat offered to her as Valerie returned with a bowl and utensils. As she served herself some soup and bread, Margot took stock of her fellow boarders. Kalina eyed the man beside her. She noted they both wore wedding rings, and it was a likely assumption that they were here together. Despite that connection, Margot caught the averted glances and the tight lines around both of their mouths. She turned her attention to the pair on her right. The young man sported a military buzz cut, and she spotted dog tags around his neck. He offered her his hand. "Private Dennis Parker." "Margot Quade, former Army chaplain." Margot felt the weight of her own dog tags and cross against her chest. They were a comforting reminder of her calling. The young woman on Dennis's other side sat hunched over her bowl of soup, the sleeves of her turtleneck sweater pulled down well over her hands. Margot thought she saw the faint yellowish green of a healing bruise on her left cheekbone. Her blonde hair fell over one shoulder. The table dropped into an uneasy silence, everyone turning their attention back to the meal. "So, Dennis, what branch of the military did you say you were in?" Caroline said, breaking the uncomfortable silence at the table. "Marines, ma'am. I deploy in a few days," he answered in a deep bass tone. "And did I hear you say that you were in the Army, Margot?" Caroline prodded. "That's right. I've been home for about a year now," Margot answered after a mouthful of soup. "Well, thank you both so much for your service," Caroline said with a bright smile. "Nana, they hate when people say that. It's like hypocritical," Valerie said loudly. Margot said nothing to Valerie's comment, but smiled to herself.